Hello everybody and welcome back to Expert Examiner IELTS. My name is Glyn and in this video I'm going to give some feedback on Arina's speaking test from yesterday. A lot to get into here. Remember, if you'd like to have your own free practice IELTS speaking test with detailed feedback, or if you'd like me to check your IELTS writing tasks, then join one of my groups. That's where I get all of my candidates from. I'm on Telegram and Facebook. Links are given in the description. But let's get into this test. So much to look at here. Good afternoon. My name is Glyn. Would you please tell me your full name?
Hello, my name is Arina Fadeva.
And what should I call you?
Arina.
Cool. This isn't tested, right? Can you tell me your name or your full name and what should I call you? It's not part of the test, but as an examiner, it's immediately noticeable the candidates who say their name clearly and the candidates that say their name not clearly. And I'm glad to put Arina in the category of those candidates who says her name clearly. So many candidates don't do this. Thank you. Now, in this first part of the test, I'm going to ask you some questions about yourself. Do you work or do you study?
I work. I'm a professional athlete. I'm a wakeboarder. It's a
Cool, a professional athlete, very nice.
water sport.
It's a water sport, nice bit of paraphrase, a little bit of explanatory power there. Not going into too much detail, you don't have to. Perfect development. And how long have you been doing this?
Around 10 years. I started back in 2016.
Awesome. I really like this, again, that difference between like the C2 and the B2. Very often, when candidates hear a how long question, they think, oh, this is time for me to use present perfect continuous, right? It's an opportunity. And absolutely, if you're around that B2 level, I've been doing this for X number of years, awesome. But notice Arina's answer, she gives the short form, right? She gives the duration around 6 years or whatever it was. She gives the short duration and then she goes into past simple. I started back in. And this is a very natural way of dealing with the question. Of course, when we're teaching grammatical tenses, we ask the question, what did you do yesterday? I went to the shop yesterday. What were you doing this time yesterday? I was working this time yesterday. How long have you been living in this house? I have been living in this house. We have this reflected, mirroring question in one tense, answer in one tense. But when we talk about flexibility, it's a really natural way of answering this, giving the short form and then changing the tense around a little bit. Yeah, very natural.
And it was something like fun.
Notice the dropping of the T. It was something like fun. So I don't know how much Arina thinks of this, but when we have something like it was, we have the T, which is a consonant sound, T, and then we have the W, which is also a consonant sound. And so saying it was, there's nothing wrong with saying it was, but very often in connected speech, we will see that T disappear. It was, and the T becomes something called a glottal stop. Everyone knows this. Bottle of water, glottal stop. Glottal, it's doesn't matter. If you're a linguistic nerd, you might know glottal stops. It was. Little things like this are noticeable. Cool. Let's just listen to it again.
16, and it was something like.
It was something like, sounds very American.
Like fun, and then
Fun, nice.
and it turned out to be a great.
Wonderful phrase of a bit. It turned out to be, and again, that D and the T, right? No, sorry. Turned out, we get that catenation. Turned out. She doesn't say turned out. She says turned out, and she doesn't say out to be. Again, we have that double T, and so we have this accommodation where the first T disappears. Out to be. It turned out to be. It turned out to be. It turned out to be. Very, very nice.
Now I'm also a wakeboarding coach for people.
And sorry, I want to go back and listen to that. It turned out to be.
Now I'm also
Sorry.
now 16, and it was something like fun, and then it turned out to be a great area.
It turned out to be a great area. So she does, it's a little, like, slightly hesitant, slightly careful with the pronunciation, but that doesn't stop it from being connected.
So I'm also a wakeboarding coach.
Does sound slightly hesitant. Now I'm also a wakeboarding coach, which is, she has decent rhythm. The intonation is still there, but maybe I'm a wakeboarding coach. I'm a versus I'm a versus I'm a. So, slight vary if I'm super nitpicky. And sometimes I speak like this too when I'm overly careful. And I think it is situationally appropriate. The IELTS criteria for fluency and coherence does mention speech being situationally appropriate. And for me, this first part of the test where she's speaking in kind of a careful way, that does show situational appropriateness or appropriacy.
For people.
And do you think you'll continue doing this in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really passionate about it.
Cool, passionate about, nice collocation.
And it's not only a stable income, but it's also something
Cool, not only, but also, you could say, well, the candidate could have used inversion here. Like, not only is it a stable income, okay, fine, you don't have to use inversion. This clause is fine. It's not only da-da-da-da-da, but also da-da-da-da-da.
rewarding when I see how people, like how happy they are when they land new tricks.
Cool, land new tricks, again, nice collocation.
I'm like more than happy to share my experience with them. So I'll do this in the future for sure.
And cool, we get a bit of future time. And notice, the candidate doesn't worry about trying to use a like future perfect continuous or something like this. Just I'll do this in the future for sure. It's appropriate, right? It's grammar that refers to the future that is appropriate. Is there anything you find difficult about this?
Well, the weather, it can be changeable, and it's a water sport, so we are practicing outside, and when it's stormy or rainy.
Okay, we are practicing outside versus we practice outside. Many grammar books would say that you should use present simple here instead of present continuous, but certainly there is a trend, the rising use of the present continuous. This tense is taking over our language, and it's absolutely acceptable here. We're practicing outside, it's okay.
We can't practice, and we sometimes cancel our sessions. And in winter, I'm from Russia, so in winter we have to go to Asian countries like Thailand.
Again, if I'm super nitpicky, we hear this to, this full form of to. Probably, if the most natural pronunciation of this is we have to go. So this v in have changes to a f to accommodate the t. And it's the short form of, we don't say to, but we say to, have to go. We have to go there. We have to go there. Not have to go. Just want to listen to the candidate's pronunciation of that again. If it's have or have.
Our sessions. And in winter, I'm from Russia, so in winter we have to go to.
Okay, she does get that f, have to go. Maybe the to is the full form of to, and it, there's no rule that says it absolutely must be the weak form of to, but it is more natural to use that weak form of to. We have to do it. We have to do it, not we have to do it. And you might think, like, what difference does this make? Well, when we're looking at high-level candidates, we're always looking at, with pronunciation, does the candidate sustain features of connected speech. And it doesn't mean that every single instance has to be connected. We just want to see enough evidence of it. And so I'm building up now evidence in my mind of times when she uses connected speech, times when she doesn't use connected speech.
Asian countries like Thailand or Bali or.
Bali's not a country, but would that stop her from getting a mark? No, it's okay to it's okay to misunderstand. Bali is in Indonesia. I'm sure the candidate knows that, but this type of misspeaking is not punished. Thank you. Let's talk now about family. Do you come from a big family? And notice I interrupt the candidate. Band 9s can be interrupted. Band 2s can be interrupted. Being interrupted isn't necessarily a poor reflection on you as a candidate. So dear candidates out there, if the examiner interrupts you, just know there are a variety of reasons why they might do that. It doesn't necessarily mean that you've done something bad.
Not really.
Not really. Again, we get that accommodation with the t disappearing. Not really. Very American. She also has this habit to like rise at the end of the sentences, which is like a very common feature of like Californian English, I think. I don't know. But it sounds really nice.
I have only one sister, and she's 15 years younger than me.
Cool. And many people might think, but she didn't develop. She developed fine. I have one, I don't, not really. I have one sister and she's X years younger than me. Absolutely fine. Not all questions need to be extended beyond belief. Again, when we examine IELTS speaking tests, we think of it over the course of the test as a whole. And who do you get on with best in your family?
I guess with my mom, she's a real hero. She brought me up as a single parent, and
Cool, she brought me up. And this is a great example of idiomatic language. You might not even know that it's idiomatic language, but it is idiomatic language. She brought me up as a single parent. Again, very topic specific vocab. You might think, well, that's not C1, C2 language, is it? She brought me up as a single parent. It absolutely is. It's topic specific, it's appropriate, and that's always what we're looking for, appropriacy. We're not looking for syllables. It's not like, oh yeah, I would say my mum because she was a pseudo anti-disestablishmentarianist. No, but she brought me up as a single parent. Amazing.
yeah, we get along, and like
Cool, get along instead of get on. Nice.
we have the same vibe. We share the same vibes, and yeah, I love her.
A little bit of a trade-off at the end, but natural. And how often do you see your extended family, like your aunts, uncles, and cousins?
Not really often because
Candidate pronounces often with the t. Now, there is a bit of a debate about whether you should pronounce often with a t or without a t. I, growing up, used to pronounce it with a t, and then I stopped, and now I'm somewhere in between. Often, fine. Often, fine. Both of those pronunciations are acceptable.
we don't actually
Again, we don't actually notice that t disappears. We don't actually, again, really noticeable for me as feature of connected speech.
get together that much.
Get together, again, nice phrasal verb, but also get together. That first t disappears. Get together. She doesn't say get together. Get together. She says get together. I really should cancel this feedback and just make a video about pronunciation features, because there are so many pronunciation features to notice, and a lot of my feedback so far has been about that pronunciation, just because there's so much to notice. Of course, I need to think about other things, vocab, grammar, and fluency and coherence, but the first thing that stands out as a strength for the candidate is that really natural pronunciation.
They live in different cities,
Different cities, again, dropping that t.
so we might have a FaceTime call
We might have a FaceTime call, nice lowering of the modality.
now and then, but we don't really get.
Now and then, again, right? So many people want to learn like once in a blue moon or from time to time or yeah, stuff like this. But now and then, I really like that. Now and then. Now and then. Just means sometimes. We do it now and then or now and again. Both of those, great.
Together.
And do you ever argue with any of your family members?
Well, absolutely. I used to have arguments.
Again, I used to have arguments. Again, the most natural is I used to have arguments. I used to have arguments instead of I used to have. So that particle to in infinitives to do something, sometimes, a couple of times now, the candidate has used the full form, where I think the weak form is just more natural.
With my granny about the sport.
With my granny, nice.
That I do. It's an extreme sport and it's really dangerous.
And notice the There's something in the, again, I'm going to talk about pronunciation, I'm sorry. There is something in the criteria that says something about conveys subtle meaning. And this is an example of this, where the intonation expresses a concession. Now, concession comes from the verb to concede, to say, yes, you are right. She's talking about the argument that she had with her granny, and she says, it is an extreme sport, and you can hear the conciliatory, I'm so sorry, the conciliatory tone. You can hear the concession, not just in the words, but you can hear it in the pronunciation. It is, and even in the, not in the grammar, sorry, but let's just listen to that again.
Sport that I do.
And do you ever argue with any of your family members? Sorry.
Well, absolutely. I used to have arguments with my granny about the sport that I do. It's an extreme sport.
It's an extreme sport. So with her intonation here, with her pronunciation, she's saying, my granny is justified in her position of being worried. And this is very subtle. It's, it's very subtle, but it's noticeable. And that is what gives the candidate a band 9 pronunciation, among other things. But these types of small details, I think understanding the difference between a 9 and an 8 is often the most difficult thing. Maybe that's the trickiest thing for people to fully understand. Understanding differences between 5s and 6s maybe a bit easier. But yeah, with pronunciation, I'm possibly already happy to park pronunciation in that band 9 and now think about other aspects of her speech. So I think I will stop making so many comments about pronunciation unless something, really amazing stands out.
And it's really dangerous. So it's like inevitable that you're going to be injured.
It's inevitable that you're going to be. Now, you might say you're going to be. She missed the verb to be. No, you're going to be. It's very, that verb to be sometimes can be very subtly pronounced. You're going to be, you're going to be, you're going to be. Fine. It's inevitable that you're going to be injured.
Sometimes. So, and she was really worried about me. So she told me to quit.
Cool. Tell somebody to do something. Nice complex verb pattern.
I didn't do this.
Cool. Nice referencing. I didn't do this. Not I didn't quit, but I didn't do this.
Because I enjoy the sport regardless of injuries or the risk of.
One thing that regardless of, that of just stands out a little bit strange. Like it should be regardless of injuries. It shouldn't be regardless of injuries, regardless of injuries. So again, we should have that short, weak form of. And I suspect one of the reasons Arina overpronounces that preposition of is probably because I know she's a wakeboarder, I think she said, but she also teaches or has taught English, and sometimes as a teacher you want your students to hear dependent prepositions, right? So I'm afraid of something, I'm interested in something, I'm worried about somebody. So sometimes the way that we speak to our students, we exaggerate the pronunciation of those prepositions because we want our students to hear them. But in natural speech, regardless of injuries, you can barely hear that or. There is no or. It's a schwa, regardless of injuries, regardless of injuries. And the candidate does say injures instead of injuries. Just notice it again.
Regardless of injuries or the.
Regardless of injures. Regardless of injures. So there is a mispronunciation of the word injuries, or perhaps the candidate thinks that injure is the noun, the singular noun, and injures is the plural noun. But there is, a tiny little error there that the candidate says injures instead of injuries.
Risk of breaking your bones.
Let's talk about names now. Do you like your name?
Yes, I do like my name now because it's
something I don't know, but I notice the candidate laughs, right? And one thing, I don't want to go too much off track, but sometimes I'm choosing a thumbnail, right, for the video. And in the speaking test, I to find the thumbnail, I need to get a picture of the candidate. And so I go back into the speaking test and then I click through different parts of the test, trying to find a part where the candidate is smiling. And with the higher level students, I find it very easy to find a thumbnail because they smile a lot. And with the band fives, it's almost impossible to find a nice thumbnail where the candidate is smiling because they always look very serious like this. Like, what do you do in your free time? In my free time, I play tennis. Now, I'm not making fun of any candidate here, but it is an interesting observation that candidates who score higher tend to have a wider emotive range of facial expressions, and candidates that score lower tend to have one serious face. So I think smiling is absolutely fine, and it can help us to bring out some intonation. However, I do think the candidate's use of laughter here just feels a little bit like nervous laughter. Now, sometimes people do get nervous, and people have their own way of dealing with it, right? Some of us struggle, some of us laugh, some of us scratch our head, some of us look down, some of us blush. I'm a terrible blusher when I'm nervous. I'm awful for it. My face goes red and I feel terrible. It's just, we all deal with that stuff. An examiner, when we think about fluency and coherence, we're often thinking about how at ease the candidate is. How comfortable do they seem in the flow of the conversation? And sometimes if you're laughing as a result of nervousness, this could be an obstacle or a barrier to fluency. Could be.
A little bit different from what Russian girls are named in general. So it's really rare, and people usually remember my name because of that.
Cool, really nice development, very clear. And does your name have any kind of special meaning?
I don't really know. I've never checked it.
The laughing is okay here, I guess.
Yeah, like when I worked in America, people
that's where the accent comes from, maybe.
always ask me, like, your name is Arina. Is this like football arena?
Your name is Arina. So when she uses direct speech, she puts extra exaggeration on the pronunciation to show that it's direct speech. Very natural.
Because it sounds like the venue. That's all I know.
Doing quite a lot with her hands. I can see that she's a very communicative, expressive person. We want to, of course, let our voice do most of the work, and sometimes when people are nervous and they are worried that perhaps their voice is not enough to do it, they feel like they need to use their hands to push the message across. There's nothing wrong. You won't be marked down for that. Yeah, but sometimes with some candidates, it can be, again, just a small piece of evidence that perhaps the candidate isn't at ease. I use my hands a lot as well, especially when I'm teaching, when I'm making these videos. So, yeah, I can't really say it's a positive or a negative.
But I didn't even read anything online about my name. I don't know anything.
Cool, and it's fine here, right? She doesn't know if her name has a meaning, and she's just expressing that. Fine. And have you ever forgotten someone's name?
Oh, many times. I have a really I have a problem with that. And when I have
Again, that laughter comes in, but I think it's okay, isn't it?
new people, I have to when I work as a wakeboarding coach, and when I see new people, they tell their name, I forget.
They tell their name. I don't love that verb. They tell their name. They tell me their name, or they give their name, or they say their name. It's probably better than they tell their name. Is this a type of vocab mistake that I can imagine an L1 user making? Yes.
It immediately.
Sorry, L1 user is what people call native speakers now, but some people don't like the term native speaker, so they use the word L1 user. Sorry. It's a linguistic thing, trend, pattern, whatever.
And yeah.
Again, we get that. And yeah. Again, that nervous laughter comes in and it's noticeable. That's all I'll say. It's noticeable.
It's really, I don't like these situations.
I think so. The candidate wrote to me afterwards, and I think this was the instance where she said she forgot the word awkward. Everyone forgets words from time to time. It's absolutely fine to forget words, and sometimes it's horrible because you really that's the one word, that's the only word I want to use. Of course, paraphrasing around it, it's uncomfortable or it feels not very good. Absolutely fine. Always better to find the paraphrase than to struggle with trying to find that word. But on a human level, I fully understand when you have a word on the tip of your tongue, when that word, it's really you just can't think of that word. It can be frustrating. I didn't even notice at the time, just noticing it, watching it back, and after the candidate wrote to say that she forgot that word awkward, it's a bit noticeable. Mm-hmm. And do you know anyone who has a very unusual name?
Yeah, there are a lot of people with unusual names, and it's a trend in Russia to give.
I have to say her articles are amazing. Like, she really, I haven't noticed one mistake with articles. Yes, that's insane.
Unusual names. My friend just had a baby, and she named her Danaya, which is not a typical Russian name.
Danaya, not Dunya. Dunishka from Преступление и наказание, from Crime and Punishment. Dunya Raskolnikova, right? Anyway, sorry, let's keep going.
And her first daughter is called Nikola, like Nikola Tesla, the scientist.
I don't know if the candidate thinks that I'm dumb here, Nikola Tesla, the scientist. It's like, yeah, I did a lesson on Tesla versus Edison quite recently, actually. Very interesting story. But yeah, again, nice paraphrase, nice explaining Nikola, Tesla, the scientist. So cool.
So yeah, I know two people with unusual names.
Cool, nice way to wrap up. Fine. I don't always love wrap-ups at the end of answers, but one or two is absolutely fine. Okay, thank you. All right, we've been going for quite a long time and we've only just finished part 1, so I'll try to do parts 2 and 3 a little bit faster. Things to notice about the candidate, very, very comfortable. Pronunciation is, effortlessly understandable, awesome, full range of phonological features, great, sustains connected speech. There are one or two instances that could be slightly more connected, but for me, pronunciation is at band 9, grammar is at band 9, fully flexible, no grammatical mistakes yet, and fully appropriate, so no problem with that. With vocab, maybe tell name, slightly odd, but acceptable acceptable. Injures versus injuries, again, slightly odd, but the candidate does find all of the words that she needs, and she has a lot of really skillful use of less common and idiomatic expressions, like brought me up as a single parent, now and then. Those are the bits of vocab that I really love. I am not impressed by words like inquisitiveness. I really like little bits of language like brought me up as a single parent. That's awesome. Yeah, in addition, and enough vocab to deal with all of that stuff. She forgot the word awkward, but big deal. My Irish friend once forgot the word sausage. He paraphrased, though. He said a cylinder of meat. Very, very nice. Fluency and coherence, again, absolutely fine. There is slight bit of nervous laughter, which perhaps may signal a little bit of nervousness, but for me, the topics are fully extended so far. But this is only part 1. The test will get more difficult, but so far, so good. To wrap that up. In part 2, the candidate needs to talk about a time when she had to apologize. Notice this is a past-focused part 2. For me, the past-focused part 2s are the areas where you can exploit the most in terms of grammar, especially if you're like a band 6, band 7, and you want to push your grammar score. For me, part 2, if you have to talk about the past, that's the time when you can use your narrative tenses: past simple, past continuous, past perfect continuous. You can use past modals: should have done, might have done, would have done. You can use wish: I wish I had done something. You can use reported speech: they said that I shouldn't have done that. You can use reported verbs: I regret having done that, or somebody accused me of doing something. There are lots of things, lots of grammatical features that go into telling a story about something that happened in the past. With this level of candidate, though, she doesn't need to worry about like exploiting. She doesn't need to worry about exploiting a cue card for grammar or for vocab, because she has enough naturally within her. She'll produce that without thinking about it. But let's see how she does. So importantly, she needs to talk about a time when she had to apologize. Now, you don't have to follow the cue card exactly, but the focus should be on this apology. And really, you know, the test writers here, they're inviting you to talk about facts: when this happened, what you did wrong, how you apologized, and also to talk about feelings, say how you felt during and after. So it's like an invitation to use emotive language. You don't have to follow it. The most important thing is that you talk about a time when you had to apologize. But I, as a person that doesn't like to take risks, I generally stick to the cue card as much as possible. I find that helps me to organize my talks over 2 minutes. Let's see how the candidate does. Your 1 minute.
I'm trying to actually hold my emotions sometimes, and
I'm trying to hold my emotions sometimes. Did we get right to the start? Sorry about that.
I'm trying to
Let you know when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please?
all right. I'm an emotional person,
Okay, I'm an emotional person.
but I'm trying to actually hold my emotions sometimes.
I'm trying to actually hold. Now, you might say that's a split infinitive, to actually hold. You can't split infinitives in English. Yes, you can.
And stay calm, but it's really hard. So I'm
Can we get a bit of nervous laughter, perhaps?
trying to read more about emotional stability.
So a bit of background information is fine, but at this point, you know, during the test, an examiner here is just looking back at the cue card and thinking, well, talk about a time when you had to apologize. And, you know, the examiner is thinking, probably she'll get there, but whenever an examiner has to look back at the cue card to make sure that they remember the task, yeah.
And emotional intelligence, because I think the skill is really important these days.
Okay, I agree. You know, emotional intelligence, hugely important skill, and it is an important skill that one needs to have if one is to become a good and effective apologizer. But let's get into this apology.
And well, sometimes emotions get in the way of
They do, but let's get into apologizing.
your success. So once I had a fight with my husband.
Okay, so now we're kind of getting around to it. It took quite a while to get there. I had a fight with my husband. Okay, we still haven't mentioned any apology, but we are getting closer.
Because of our cat. And then I had to apologize.
Okay, finally. So after, I think, about 40 seconds, we have that word apologize, or maybe it was... I wrote down 36 seconds of background.
For my behavior, for my shouting and losing myself, like losing my temper. So what happened
Losing my temper, great.
was he gave
What happened was really nice cleft sentence to set up a story. Very nice.
her a piece of fish, and then she felt bad and she was vomiting. And
Some people say, oh, you can't call your cat she in English, can you? It must be it. No, we often call our pets he or she. No problem with that.
so we thought to like that something was wrong with her stomach. And then when I realized that the problem was in this piece of fish, so
Maybe you could have used past perfect there, right? I realized that the problem was that he had given her this fish. You know, you don't have to use past perfect there, but it is just, you know, an opportunity.
I shouted and I was like, you know, very emotional.
feels slightly more disjointed than part one, just slightly.
About that. He was shouting back, and
Cool, he was shouting back. I love that little preposition back there, to shout back.
which normally doesn't happen. He's a very calm person, and as a man, he's really reserved. He never
Cool, I think that's good that a man is reserved and doesn't shout back. I think that's healthy. However, while I think all of that stuff is great, I want the focus to be more about, a time when you had to apologize. A bit of extra detail, background detail, supporting detail is fine, but I just feel like we should be a bit more on the topic of apologizing.
shows his emotions. So it was like a huge fight. And then I realized.
So the focus seems to be, the focus so far seems to be on the fight, right? That's where the focus seems to be. I had a fight. And of course, it's natural. If you talk about a time when you had to apologize, you have to say what went wrong before you can say what the apology was and how you apologized. But just feels like we've spent a bit too much time on this. We could have got around it. A faster way to get to it might be something like, well, I'm not a very good apologizer naturally, so I had to learn a bunch of different stuff about like emotional intelligence to become a better apologizer. And one time when I needed to apologize happened a couple of years ago when I had this huge fight with my husband because, he'd given her a bit of fish and it turned out that the cat didn't really, not that the cat didn't like the fish, but that the fish didn't really like the cat. And my cat got sick as a result of this. So, of course, I lost my temper and I started shouting at my husband and he started shouting back. And normally he doesn't do that, but I knew I was in the wrong. So it was time to apologize, right? And then we can that's like 20 seconds or 25 seconds. And now, boom, we are there, we're at the heart, we talk about how we apologize, and then we can get into the feeling. So just getting to the heart of this task 2 subject faster will help.
That I should stop because it was getting too far. And
was getting too far or was going too far? Going too far is definitely better, not getting too far.
Then I remembered some videos about emotional intelligence, and I said, like, let's stop, breathe.
Okay, so now she's talking about how she apologized, or she's talking about how she resolved the fight rather than apologizing, I think.
Leave for maybe 10 minutes and I'll get back and we'll talk.
And we'll talk. And we'll talk. This isn't just American English, this is New York. New York. And then we'll talk. Amazing. There's almost a what sound? Talk. Talk. Just no, sorry, I really like it.
I'll leave for maybe 10 minutes and I'll get back and we'll talk.
And we'll talk. Really love that. Sorry, that's the highlight for me. If I was the type of YouTuber who made shorts, that's what I would make a short of. And we'll talk.
Then I came back. Everything was like really fine and I had to apologize.
So now we're so she's talking about like resolving and the steps that she took with her emotional intelligence to take some time out. And then she came back and it's time to apologize. But I think we're already something like 1 minute 30, 1 minute 40 into this part 2.
Accepted my apologies and we made up and everything was
cool. We made up. Great.
Fine. And after this.
Okay, thank you. And you see, that's the issue now, the problem now. We haven't spoken about how we felt during or after the apology. Now, you won't be marked down for that necessarily, but we might, an examiner certainly might feel like, okay, let's go into charitable and uncharitable examiners. Some examiners are just naturally more charitable than others, right? Some examiners mark positively, and we're always looking to give candidates the benefit of the doubt. And so there is an argument, right? A justification, possible justification that, yeah, the candidate has fully developed this and she's fine. She's talked about a time when she had to apologize. She's done that. She has done that for 2 minutes in an organized way, in some cases, maybe slightly disjointed, maybe. That's the charitable view. The uncharitable view is, well, she didn't really talk so much about a time when she had to apologize. She talked about a time when she had a fight with her husband, and she spoke about her husband's reaction, and she spoke about how her husband usually reacts, and she spoke about emotional intelligence and why that's important, and she spoke about how her emotional intelligence helped her to resolve the conflict that she had with her husband. But she didn't really talk about apologizing. And I historically I used to be a less generous examiner, let's say. I'm now closer towards a more generous examiner, and it's tricky. But as a YouTuber, the advice that I would give is take as a YouTuber, as a teacher, the advice that I would give is to take as few risks as possible. We don't want to give any examiner a possible reason to mark us down for anything. And I feel like in this, you have given the examiner a justification. If an examiner doesn't want to give you a 9, and for reasons that I've spoken about a few times, examiners prefer to give an 8.5 overall than a 9, for reasons. And this would be maybe an instance where an examiner would think, well, you weren't fully on topic, so I can't give you the 9 for fluency and coherence, and so I can't give you the 9 overall. Possibly. Yeah, but I also see a justification that, the candidate did talk about a time when she had to apologize, and she spoke for 2 minutes, and she was clear. So, boxing judges, examiners, we're all a bit different. We all see things a bit differently. There is a justification for a 9. There is a justification for an 8. All right, so you've been talking about this time when you apologized to your husband. I do feel like the candidate seemed a little bit defeated at this time, like when she ran out of time. I don't know, but I felt like she felt that she had run out of time and hadn't told the whole story. But okay, let's talk a little more about apologies and forgiveness now. What are some common situations that require an apology?
If we start from small situations like accidentally hitting a person,
Accidentally hitting a person is fine. Bumping into a person, maybe a bit more natural, but accidentally hitting is fine.
or I don't know, pushing a person on a crowded train, then of course we say sorry. If we talk about like bigger mistakes, I think there could be some issues with misunderstanding among parents and their children, among coworkers or teachers and students.
Okay, we get a list of 3 things.
In these situations, when there is some misunderstanding, people have to apologize sometimes.
Yeah, perhaps, if I'm uber critical, I could say, well, give me a detail of that possible misunderstanding. What kind of misunderstanding could happen between co-workers? What kind of misunderstandings could happen between parents and children? Of course, we have to be careful with the way that we manage our time, because we know that we can't speak forever and ever and ever, and these topics do have the scope to talk about them forever and ever and ever. And so we have to be careful what we do. But I do think maybe a concrete example could be helpful. And why do you think apologizing is sometimes difficult for people?
It's really hard to
Again, we get that full 2. It's really hard to do something. But again, sometimes it's really hard to, and then we use the verb. That is a natural disfluency. I don't use the word disfluency in a negative way. Disfluencies are absolutely natural parts of spontaneous speech, spontaneous language production. We expect some type of disfluencies, and I think that disfluency is perfectly natural.
to acknowledge your mistakes.
To acknowledge your mistakes, really nice.
It's really hard to
Again, we get a bit of nervous laughter when she seemingly forgets a word.
actually understand that you were wrong, because by nature people are
Love that. By nature, people are blah, blah, blah. Really nice.
egoistic, and people think that they're always right and that there is only their opinion which is right.
Yeah, people.
It's really hard to accept.
But we've had one thing I will be critical of here is it's hard to. We've had 3 times. It's hard to da 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 da, and it's hard to da 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 da, and it's hard to da 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 da. I don't like, if we're gonna. I don't like repetitive structures like this. I don't feel like they are supernatural. But okay, minor.
Situations when it's okay to agree to disagree. That's why it's hard to apologize.
And do you think it's always easy for a person to apologize if they understand they've done something wrong? So certainly with higher level candidates, I like to dig deeper into what they say. So of course I have a list of questions, but I try to get those questions in a way that feels like it's a discussion. So the candidate has said that people find it difficult to apologize because they can't accept that they've done something wrong. So now I want to ask the logical question of, well, what about people who understand that they've done something wrong? Is it logically, therefore, easy for them to apologize? And I like to do this because it puts a bit of extra cognitive load on the candidate. Can the candidate now maintain consistency or add a concession or change their mind about things, or will they break down under pressure?
It's not easy. I think it
And again, you feel that concession. It's not easy.
comes with maturity. It comes with
maturity. So notice this pronunciation of maturity. Someone in the comment section said that this was a mispronunciation, that it should be maturity. Now, certainly the most common pronunciation of mature is with a ch. Mature, immature, maturity, immaturity, with a ch sound. However, it is also acceptable mature, immature, maturity. My mum says mature, not mature. My mum says maturity, not maturity. So for me, this isn't a mispronunciation. It's a non-standard pronunciation. And of course, that opens up Pandora's box of, well, can't everything be considered a non-standard pronunciation? And if you're a sociolinguist like me, the answer is yes. But in the context of IELTS, it's an interesting, those are the types of decisions that examiners, are paid to make. Is maturity an acceptable pronunciation? I will say yes. Some might say no.
experience and life experience. And still, a lot of people don't apologize just because they think that they're entitled, or they think that they are too old, too mature to do this
Again, we get mature.
to their children. If we have an example with children and parents, a lot of grandparents can be wrong, but they think that, okay, I'm the representative of the older generation, so why should I apologize? I have so much life experience. Why would I apologize to a young person? But this sometimes happens.
This sometimes happens. I don't know if she missed that S. This sometimes happen. It seems a bit odd. It's certainly just a little slip. I don't think the candidate has problems with present simple third person S. This sometimes happen. For me, is it the type of mistake an L1 user would usually make? No. Is it enough to pull her grammar score down? I would say no.
Yeah.
Is it easier for a younger person to apologize to their parents or grandparents? So again, I'm digging in even deeper now. I'm digging in even deeper where the candidate says, oh, even if you've done something wrong, if you're the older person, you might still refuse to apologize because you feel like you have a lot of life experience. So therefore, logically, is it easier, therefore, for young people to apologize?
It's also not really easy because...
But the candidate doesn't panic, and I love how she doesn't panic. It feels... Sometimes when you have these speaking tests and you have the part 3 discussion, sometimes it feels like you're talking to a human and you're finding out a human's perspective on things. And I feel like this is the case with Arina. I feel like Arina is expressing her opinions about the difficulties of apologizing. Other times with candidates, I feel very strongly that I am speaking to a candidate in an English language test who is just trying to say something about something. So I'm really pleased to see that the candidate is engaging in the discussion in a natural way. She's not just making something up and hoping for the best. She's trying to express her ideas.
Of another reason, I guess, that younger people, they're growing and their hormone level is is not even sometimes.
Not even fine, imbalanced, maybe. Okay.
It's fluctuating and
Cool.
sometimes they feel calm and sometimes it's easy for them to apologize, but sometimes they may like be really furious.
Yeah, it's a weird bit of modality here. They may be like really furious. It seems strange, like they may be softening and then really furious. I think like they may be like quite angry. That would be more natural. With that maybe, which is softening it, we want to soften the adjective too. So we would have like a detensifying adverb of degree, like quite, and we would use the normal strength adjective angry instead of like they may be really furious. They may be like quite angry. That seems more situationally appropriate.
For no reason, and they will never apologize to their parents or grandparents.
But I could probably listen to an L1 user or a native speaker speaking and make those type of comments too, maybe. Let's move on now and talk about manners and politeness. How do people in your country usually show politeness? Horrible question.
Well, it's just opening a door in front of older people,
Number one,
women, pregnant women, or
listing.
like just people in general, or maybe in a crowded train. Also, you leave a seat to a person
Give up your seat or just give your seat is probably better than leave.
who is older, or you see that they are carrying bags. This is the act of politeness. Saying thank you.
It does feel like the candidate is just listing different ways. And you might think, well, that's what the question demands, isn't it? Like, how do people show politeness? Surely you just give a list of different things, but it's not really the best way of developing. I think it's much better to just, list one or two. I think, like in most countries, people show politeness by giving up their seat on the metro, especially to, a disabled person or a pregnant woman or an old person, something like this. But I think the thing in my culture that really stands out is like how we have polite language, like the type of language we use with young kids is very different to the type of language that we use with older people. And I don't know, maybe that's the same in many languages, but I don't know, in my first language, it just feels like through some of this vocab and grammar that we use, it kind of signals some high level of respect for older people. And that would be a better answer because we're not just listing, we're trying to give some extra details.
Sending flowers or thank you cards.
Okay, we can stop listing now.
Treating people with food or just
we just have list.
I don't know, inviting them for dinner could be.
Yeah, politeness. I mean, tricky. And again, this seems to be an instant where, and it's a natural reaction. Candidates are looking for the right answer instead of talking through. Now, I think what's going on in Arina's mind is I'm not really sure how we show politeness. So maybe we do this, and then 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 we do this. Whereas maybe the best approach to say, maybe the best approach or a better approach would be to be honest and say, how do we show politeness? I don't know if there's anything specific about like my country. Of course, we say like please and thank you and things like this, and we apologize if we do something wrong, but I don't know. I mean, how do we show politeness to people? I'm not sure. I think like other cultures, we try to show respect to older people, so we do this in a number of ways. Like sometimes we might, chat to them on the street and make small talk with them or something like this. Old people, sometimes they feel lonely and they want someone to speak to. So if you're on the bus with them, you might talk about the weather or something like this. That might feel like a bit more of a natural approach rather than just listing. So a couple of ways, a couple of strategies there. First, in order to avoid listing, we can list one or two or maybe up to three things and then go into detail, or we can talk through our uncertainty or talk through our difficulty with a question. Nothing wrong with doing that.
An act of politeness. Mhm.
Do you think people in cities are generally less polite than those in rural areas?
Oh, I don't think so. I think in cities people are more polite because they have mm, more chances to be educated and they
Yeah, is there a connection between being educated and being polite? Possibly.
read more in general. They are exposed to something more formal, like formal meetings or academic meetings, and they interact with different types of people. That's
I feel like this, I mean, the answer is certainly not off topic, but I feel it has slightly less explanatory power than previous ones. Like, are people in the city more or less polite? And now we're talking, they have more opportunity to go to like formal academic meetings. I don't know if we're quite, hitting the bullseye with this answer.
why, well, they are educated compared
Bit of a repetition of ideas.
to people who live in rural areas. I think, well,
It really feels like the candidate is trying not to be offensive. It feels like, maybe, like all of us, she has some type of bias against certain groups of people. And it is common in many countries that, people in the city are kind of smart and sophisticated and nice and polite. And then people in the countryside are kind of idiots and morons and they're rude. Now, I'm someone from the countryside ish, so I don't, I'm not offended by that. But it seems like Arina, because of this, she knows that like, oh, I can't just say that people from the countryside are horribly rude. And it feels like she's afraid to say something that might be a bit offensive. And good on you for being tactful in this situation. But sometimes just simplify your ideas a little bit so we don't have to walk that very delicate road. Simple things. Say, no, I don't think it depends on where you're from. I think, all people, if they have the right parents and they're brought up right, everyone can be polite. That might be an easier road to walk.
since they have limited opportunities in general, they might be a little bit harsh sometimes, a little bit rude, not because they are rude by nature. It's just
Hashtag not all.
because they don't know some rules of conduct in society.
And how do you think ideas about politeness might change in the future?
I think that people will maybe forget about being polite because of social media. And I guess that social media actually erases a lot of boundaries.
Cool. Maybe give an example or explain exactly what you mean. How does social media erase boundaries?
And our language becomes simplified.
Cool. Could you give an example?
Our behavior becomes simplified. And
Cool. Could you give an example?
maybe people in the future will forget about the norms and say like, okay, forget it. Well, I wouldn't just respect you and just will talk to you like with a teenage person instead of talking to you like an elderly person.
That is the end of the test. All right.
Thank you.
All right. So yeah, the last couple of questions maybe just slightly less powerful than the rest of them, but certainly overall a very, very, very strong performance, right? I hope we can all agree with that. This is a C-level candidate. I always ask viewers to let me know what score they think the candidate deserves. Somebody did say 7 or 7.5. I think, the candidate is definitely stronger than 7.5. I also posed the question, like, is this a band 9? Is this good enough for a band 9? Because my first impression was, yeah, if I was the examiner, my first impression was I would probably give her a band 9. She is C2, and I do think, pronunciation, band 9. In terms of grammar, we had that one slight kind of mistake. Vocab, there were tiny lapses. Fluency and coherence, I was a bit confused about part 2, and that was the one thing that I thought maybe would pull her down to 8.5. At the time watching, I thought, yeah, if I was an examiner, I would probably award the 9. I would feel comfortable awarding the 9. But having watched it back, of course, when you watch it back, you can always find more details and you can always find more reasons possibly to pull the score down. So I'm going to try to approach this with an open mind, to forget about what Glyn during the test was thinking and to think about what Glyn during the feedback video was thinking. So let's have a look at this, and we'll start with pronunciation. So here are the band descriptors. Let me take a blue pen. I'm going to start with pronunciation. Full range of phonological features, yes. To convey precise and or subtle meaning, yes. Flexible use of features of connected speech is sustained throughout, yes. Does that mean there are absolutely no lapses? No, but for me, there is enough evidence to say that flexible use of features of connected speech is sustained throughout, can be effortlessly understood throughout, absolutely yes. Accent has no effect on intelligibility, absolutely yes. Pronunciation, band 9, ura. Well done. Cool. Grammatical range and accuracy. Structures are precise, yes. And accurate at all times, yes. Now, this is maximalist, right? At all times, at all times, at all times. And so could I imagine an examiner looking at that like it sometimes happen versus it sometimes happens, it sometimes happen, it sometimes happens. An examiner could say, well, there was that mistake, so it's not at all times. Apart from mistakes, characteristics of native speaker speech. Is it characteristic of native speaker speech to forget third person S? When I write, I sometimes forget it. My brain is thinking of something else. Not really, not super characteristic, but if I was examining, I would give a band 9 for grammatical range and accuracy. I would be happy to write that justification and say, this is why I'm giving the band 9. IELTS does have something we call hard caps, so it is quite strict. Examiners are required to be quite strict about, hand on heart. Can I say that she was precise and accurate at all times? Can I say that for sure? And so, I could see an examiner maybe awarding an 8 there, but I'm giving a 9 for grammatical range and accuracy. Lexical resource, total flexibility and precise use in all contexts, yes. Sustained use of accurate and idiomatic language, yes. I think so. Let's have a look at the Band-Aid. Wide resource, yes. Readily and flexibly used, yes. To discuss all topics and convey precise meaning. Okay, pretty similar. Skillful use. So here we have sustained use, and here we have skillful use. And there may be some people who would say, yeah, it's more skillful than sustained. Despite occasional inaccuracies. What occasional inaccuracies did we have? Injures instead of injuries, tell their name instead of give their name or say their name, leave a seat instead of give up your seat. Could we say that that is an occasional inaccuracy? Possibly. So when I think of, what is the best fit here? Tough. And I think maybe I'm going to drop this to an 8. The lexical resource. I mean, certainly she has the range, the precision, maybe for a 9. Maybe there's just a three bits of vocab where it's slightly inaccurate, probably for me enough to drop it to an 8. Fluency and coherence. Let's have a look at the 9 first of all. Fluent with only very occasional repetition. The candidate does have occasional repetition. Is it, and I think very occasional repetition or self-correction, fine. Hesitation occurs to prepare the content, yes. Not to find words or grammar, generally that's true. Speech is situationally appropriate, yes. Cohesive features are fully acceptable, yes. But this one here, topic development is fully coherent and appropriately extended, versus the band 8, topic development is coherent, appropriate, and relevant. And for me, probably I'm leaning more towards that 8. I don't think I can, those last 2 questions in speaking part 3 and some of those doubts that I had about speaking part 2, for me that makes band 8 a better fit. Topic development is coherent rather than topic development is fully coherent and appropriately extended. Slightly closer to the 8. So at first, my first reaction when I tested this candidate was I would probably give her the band 9. My watching it back, I've now just dropped the score ever so slightly. Fluency and coherence, I'm awarding 8 for this. Lexical resource, I'm awarding 8 for this. Grammatical range and accuracy, 9. Pronunciation, 9. And overall, that leads us to an 8.5. So, unfortunately, not quite the 9. We all want the 9. Key areas of improvement that I noted down. No surprise to see part 2 at the top there. Tried to get to the heart of the subject a little faster in part 2. Some background details are fine, but always keep in mind where the main focus should be. The main focus, time when you had to apologize. Again, certainly there are some examiners, many examiners, who would say, no, don't be ridiculous. She spoke about a time when she had to apologize. She was fine. There was nothing wrong with that. Some examiners could have that opinion, and I would be okay with that justification. But again, as someone that doesn't like to take risks, I would say get to the heart faster. Secondly, there's no rule that says you can't list things, but there were a few answers where I felt like you were just listing. An example of like how you can maximum 3, right? Rule of 3 when it comes to lists. But we always want to keep the lists short and then go into detail. Not always, but it's a strategy, right? So if it's like, what type of sports do you do, right? Answer like, I do a lot of different sports. I run, 1, play basketball, 2, and play football. But now I want to get away from the list and go into detail. Running is my absolute favorite, though. It's like a kind of meditation for me. I don't know. Maybe it sounds odd, but it's the only thing that truly helps me relax. This is, a great example where we can have a list of 3 things, and then we are going into detail and developing appropriately. At times you have a nervous laugh. Again, we all get nervous. We have different ways of dealing with that. An examiner could see that as a sign of discomfort, which could possibly affect your fluency and coherence score. Possibly. Again, I wouldn't mark it down. But some people might feel like, oh, this is the trick that she has, that when she runs into problems with fluency, she laughs and says actually, and then, reformulates. For me, it's okay, but some examiners might see it as a sign that you are not fully at ease. So yeah, those are my marks and those are my thoughts. Wonderful performance from the candidates. So much to love about the pronunciation, so much to love about the natural language use. Grammatical accuracy is insane. This IELTS test, getting a 9 is super difficult. It's really hard. I really wouldn't be surprised. The candidate certainly has the potential to get a 9 in fluency and coherence, a 9 in lexical resource, a 9 in grammar, a 9 in pronunciation. The key question is, can she hold it together on test day? She certainly, she has all of the skills. Can she hold it together on test day? Can she control her nerves? And can she speak in a natural way, in a way that she knows that she can speak? But it's a test. right? If you've ever had a driving test or a job interview, you probably come out of those things thinking like, oh, damn it, I didn't do as well as I know I can do. And it's the same with the IELTS test, that we always feel like, I could have done better, I should have done better, I shouldn't have said that, I should have said this, I shouldn't have done that, I should have done this. It's a test, and it always happens, unfortunately. So, yeah, in terms of language ability, the candidate certainly can get a 9. It's just a question of whether she can hold it together on test day. I don't know if she's planning to take another IELTS test soon. I know she's done some IELTS tests in the past. I would say, on the one hand, I would say, forget about the 9. You don't need the 9. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You've mastered the English language. Doesn't make any difference whether you get a 9 or not. But I know if I was in her position as also an uber competitive person, if I knew I could get the 9, I would want that 9. And so I can understand if the candidate wants to go down that road of getting the 9. Examiners generally, if they can avoid giving a 9, they prefer to give 8.5s. But yeah, an amazing performance. Very, very well done. 8.5. The candidate is at C2 level for me. But you let me know what you think. Are my marks too harsh? Are my marks too generous? What do you think the candidate deserves for this performance? Is there anything I've said that you disagree with? Let me know. As always, if you'd like to have your own free practice IELTS speaking test with this level of detailed feedback, which you get nowhere else, then let me know. I collect all of my candidates from 2 places, my Facebook group and my Telegram groups. Links to both of those are in the description. Candidates are always selected at random. There are some minor exceptions, but usually candidates are selected at random for these tests. If you want to avoid the random process and you want to guarantee a speaking test or a writing check, you can pay for one. A full list of my services and prices a full list is available on my website, expertexaminer.com. Links to everything are given in the description. Anyway, this has been a long one. More videos from me coming soon, but for now, bye-bye.